The Lord of the Rings. One ring to rule them all. The Ring of Power. Now, I think many of you know the story, but if you do not know it, if you haven't seen the movies or read the book, read the book this week. That's your job. It's very good, I promise you. But imagine with me, the moment Frodo's been given this task, this mission. He is to destroy this ring. And the ring represents evil and all of the evil it brings into the world. And here he is. He and his buddy Sam, they've made this journey, this treacherous, dangerous journey where people have died on the way. And there's Frodo in Mordor at the fire. And there he stands. He's got the ring in his hand. And all he has to do is throw that thing into the fire, and it'll be destroyed. And there he stands with the ring. And his buddy Sam behind him, throw it, Frodo. Throw it into the fire. And there he stands, he's holding it. He's looking at it, he sees the ring. He sees that it's beautiful. And he desires its power. And what does he do? Takes the ring, grasps it in his hand, brings it to his chest, and he turns back to his buddy Sam and says, "No, the ring is mine." And it's devastating. Devastating. All of the sacrifices they have made, and they're this close to destroying the ring. And Frodo chooses to keep it for himself. All right, friends, how's Lent going? Here we are, 4 days in, about, right? How many of you have been tempted to go back to the thing that you've been abstaining from? Anybody? Heck yeah, I'm not alone. There we go. Some of us maybe, you do not have to raise your hand for this one, this is not a public confession, but some of us maybe have already failed. And have, if you gave up social media and you're already back on Facebook or whatever it is. We're drawn to these things. We experience the temptation daily. That's what it is to be human. We are tempted people. We're Frodo. We are all Frodo. We know what it is to have this thing that we're trying to get rid of that we know is harmful for our lives. And yet, just like Frodo, we go, "No, I'm not throwing that into the fire. It's mine. Sorry, Lord, I'm keeping that." We all know what it is to be Frodo. We know that. We're not just Frodo, though. We're also Eve. We're also Eve. Notice, and this is why Tolkien is so brilliant. It's almost like he's quoting scripture in that moment with Frodo in the ring. Because here you have the woman, she saw that the fruit of the tree was good for eating. And it was pleasing to the eyes. And she desired its wisdom. Frodo saw the ring, it was pleasing to his eye, he desired its power. There it is, right here with Eve. And she takes the fruit. And here's the thing. What the heck, Adam? Where are you? Dude, man, he had one job, help his wife. And he was there, but not helpful. He's like, "Yeah, take it, honey. Do it. Let's go." Dude, no. Come on. And so they both take the fruit and they eat of it. So here's the thing. We're Eve. All of us are tempted, and we go for the thing that's really harmful for us. And this is why Eve and Frodo are helpful for us as we start Lent, because they teach us that we need God's grace and we need the community to overcome sin and temptation. Right? Here's Eve. And she's supposed to have a partner to help her, to prevent her from taking this fruit. That represents what happens when we don't rely on the community. We don't rely on each other, we fall, we fail. And then Frodo, standing there with temptation, by himself, and of course he's got Sam behind, he's got his buddy encouraging him, but he needed the grace to say no. And he didn't. He chose the evil. All of us, I think, probably everybody here is thinking of different things that tempt you in your life and my life, and how we follow that temptation. And here's the problem. Temptations, as we saw in our first reading, often lead to sins. Often. And so we have to do something about that. And the other problem is, the more often we do something, the more likely we are going to do it again. This is actually not just a spiritual thing. It's like literally a brain thing. Neuroscientists, and if you're a scientist in here, be kind to me. I'm not really a scientist, but I do find this aspect of our brain fascinating, that when we do something, we often do it again. It's called neuroplasticity. We literally have the ability to make pathways in our brain for the things that we do. That's good and bad. Bad, because when we do sinful things, we have literally created a pathway of sin in our brain. Good, because we can, with God's grace, create pathways of grace in our brain. And so the challenge for us this weekend, quite simply, is this: to rewrite the pathways of sin in our lives into pathways of grace, because our brains have that ability to be formed and changed. And that's what we are embarking on as we begin this Lenten journey, a way to rewrite our brains and to follow Christ. Well, how do we do that? Well, we do that, thanks be to Jesus, by following him. Follow him to the desert. One thing that I've said before, which is kind of cool, by the way, that now I've been here a couple of years and I can go back and think, I said that 2 years ago. How about that? The desert is a place of strength. The desert is not a place of weakness. It's a place where Jesus is going to do battle. It's like putting on armor. He's like, you're going to come at me, Satan, and guess what? I'm going to be ready. And you're going to be sorry. I'm going to be filled with the Spirit. That's what's happening here. And so our job then is to follow Jesus into the desert, to be ready, to be filled with the Spirit, to put on the armor of Christ, so that when the devil comes, that tempter, as we heard in the gospel, we can say no. Be gone, Satan. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing that we do if we're going to say no to these temptations, big or small, in our lives and create these new pathways of grace is, number one, rely on grace. Simple prayer. Oh God, come to my assistance. Lord, make haste to help me. That's a beautiful prayer because it's scripture. It's from a psalm, but also because it's from the heart. And great temptation. Oh God, come to my assistance. Lord, make haste to help me. Always start with God's grace. And the second thing we need to do is just do what Jesus did. Say no. It seems so elementary, but it's the thing we're supposed to do. Just say no. The devil comes to Jesus. Turn that rock into bread. No. Go jump off the wall of the temple and let God save you. No. Worship me. No. Go away, Satan. Just say no. Ask for God's help and then say no to the temptation. And then the third one, and this is really the rubber hits the road. This is really where that transition from a sinful pathway to a grace-filled pathway can take place, and that's rerouting and making plans for our lives. So what does that look like? Well, I love French fries. I've talked about them many times. They're amazing. You don't get this way if you don't like French fries. Just saying. Put cheese and bacon and cider ranch, chef's kiss. Awesome. There you are, and I tell you, I'm going to give up French fries for Lent. And you say, well, Father, how are you going to do that? Well, here's my plan. My plan is to have lunch every day at Five Guys. Father, bad plan, right? You might want to reroute your life a little bit. You might want a different place. Well, that seems obvious, but how many of us, with the things that we're mostly tempted with, go back to that thing over and over again? We might have to reroute our life a little bit. So if gossip is your thing, and you gossip with the same person, well, then make a plan. Next time I talk to this person, if we start gossiping, I'm going to say something nice about that person and have that nice thing ready. Plan it out. If there's a struggle with technology and social media or whatever it is, well, then maybe get rid of it. And don't allow yourselves to have it at certain times of the day. Make a plan. Because as we literally reroute our lives in our physical world, we actually reroute our brain. It'll be great. So that's the third thing. Fourth is to enlist the help of others. Again, Frodo needed Sam on the journey. He needed him. And we need each other. That's why being together as a community of faith is so important. We need each other. Enlist the help of your family and your friends when it comes to sinful patterns in our lives. And the fifth thing is practice. Practice makes perfect. When I was playing basketball younger and more competitively, and practicing free throws, we always had the same routine. I dribble 3 times, spin it in my hand. Why did I spin it in my hand? I don't know. I just did. I spin it in my hand and then shoot the free throw. Same time, every time. Because the more similar it is, the more likely it's going to go in. Routines help. The more you practice, the better it'll be. So practice. The challenge for us as we begin Lent is not just to make that transition, but also to call to mind that there really are sinful pathways in all of our lives that need to change. And to be willing to say, you know what, Lord? This sinful pathway exists in my life. Help me to follow your Son into the desert and to create a pathway of grace.